I'm not going to step over. I'm going to tell you the truth this morning. And anything less would be a dishonor to the man that we're thinking about. I mean, I can't just step over it. Thursday morning, Karl Wilson passed away. And some of you have probably known Karl a lot longer than I have. But I can't not talk about him. I had my sermon planned, and I said, you know what? One, you're going to be able to tell something's missing up here. I'm going to talk about I'm going to be talking around something, right? Instead of being here with you, discussing something, which is what I'd rather do. I think Karl's been in the Church of God his whole life, I believe. Pretty close to it, the better part of it for sure. And some people online have known Karl their whole lives, but I think he joined the church here locally about 8 years ago, maybe longer. And very quickly he became a part of the church, right? I mean, he just fit right in. I think he was visiting a couple different churches, but he just became a part of this church in a way that's just instrumental, right? He was just the lifeblood in a lot of ways of this group. He was a big thread, and there's a hole here this morning. And I felt there was a couple things going on. I was like, maybe I could talk about something else because it's going to be a little bit more comfortable, right? It's going to be a little uncomfortable talking about this, and especially, it being so fresh. I can tell you technically why it happens. I can give you a great little message on that. And it is a good message because it is encouraging. That's right. But we grieve today. And I want to say this clearly because I believe someone here, maybe, possibly someone on the internet, feels that needs to hear this, which is that they feel like grief in some way is a lack of faith, right? Like, don't you know he's going to wipe away every tear at some point? Why are you crying? Like, we can know that conceptually, and that's true. So grieving is simply love that hasn't found a place to put itself yet. That's where we're at. And it's okay. And however we're doing it, however people do it, that's how they're doing it. That's fine. That's exactly how you're supposed to be doing it. There's no right way. And a friend of mine told me recently, been great counsel over the years, that not to worry as much about y'all and to think about what I want to say to y'all, to share something with you. And so I'm going to tell you the truth today. And here's the first thing. What I won't do is I'm not going to sit up here and explain to you why this happened. Again, I could give you a nice little message with a nice little bow on it and tell you exactly what I read God is doing and why. And people like to do that. They like to give answers, right? We're going to give you an answer as to why this happened. Sometimes it's just a mystery. Is that okay? Can we be okay with, I don't know? It seems to be a very difficult thing for us to say sometimes, especially from up here. And I get it. The desire to comfort people is to give them an answer, to give you a reason why this thing makes sense. I don't know. Because I asked, whenever we prayed for Karl, whenever we prayed for my mother, we prayed for people we love and care about, we expect, we hope, we pray in earnest that these things happen. It's not something that we just take lightly. We are putting our all into it. And when you put your all into something and it doesn't happen, there's a question that arises. What's going on? Did I do something wrong? Are they doing something wrong? What's wrong, right? Is what's kind of what we conclude. We asked for the healing. Now, it came in a form that we didn't necessarily recognize. But the men that I look up to, I ask them, whenever it doesn't come in the way that we look for it, okay, how many times has it come in the way that we wanted it to, right? How many miracles have you seen over the years? men of this faith that I've asked many times, and many people, better part of a decade, or I mean, better part of a century, serving the church. Hundreds, tens. I won't tell you the number because I feel like you might be just not encouraged, but the answers were always inevitably, I don't know. Why do you mean I don't know? Well, for one, the I don't know is, again, not a lack of faith. It is a mature answer. It's the right answer. Because we don't know when people are healed in a way that we can't see. But as far as seeing a withered hand made whole, that's something that's, okay, that's a miracle for sure. I can see that. It was happening in front of me. And I'm not here to say that was a what? Don't pray, don't believe in God, don't believe in miracles. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying personal experience and not manufacturing truth because it's easier. Karl deserves the truth. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. See, that door is locked. I don't understand. I don't know what's behind that door, right? Why this happened. But there is a door that we can unlock today. And that is not why didn't God spare Karl, but what was true of how Karl walked. Because I can answer that. It's cool. We really got to know each other when we started doing these service project things, right? The service project Sundays that we were doing. And I was thinking about, I was talking it over with Steve in the back before services, and he had started chemo right before our very first service project. Remember this? And he shows up, and Sharon's like, what are you doing? Where are you going? And he's this kind of man he is. He was just there. You could tell he didn't feel good, and he was like there and showed up even though he felt bad. And that means a lot. There was that big bonfire. He was sweating. He was out there with that shovel kind of leaning on it. He's just like, whew, he's sweating. Man, covered head to toe in sweat. I mean, you want to know people, you want to know who they are. Look what they fight to do when they're sick, right? What they have to do. Kind of get the measure of the person, right? See what they do when the chips are down, when things are difficult. The oldest name for our faith is walkers of the way, right? Before they were Christians, called walkers of the way, aren't they? You find that in Acts, about how Paul identifies them. Crucified walkers of the way. Capital T, capital W. It's kind of cool. And Karl was a walker of the way. And I had these hats printed up. They were called, they said, Walker of the Way. You can order now, $19.95. But Karl, I gave one of those to Karl. Went good on him. That way is not easy. It's difficult, the way. It's a tough road. A lot of people think they're on the way, but the real way is very, very difficult. So narrow, that's right. And there's not a lot of comfort on that road, I'm sorry to say. Call it cold comfort, right? Cold comfort. This idea that as a teacher of mine once said, this book, the Bible, is not a very encouraging book. I said, what? What do you mean it's not an encouraging book? What? Did I hear you right? Explained to me that he was, or not to me, but that there was a night he was feeling particularly down. So this is a man who's been around for, well, since the beginning, as far as the church is concerned, churches of God. And he was feeling down, so he went to go get his Bible, and he opened it up, and he just didn't find himself being comforted by the messages that were in there. It was very, very, a lot of stories about people overcoming, which might seem to be encouraging, but on the face of it, it's difficult. There's trials, left and right. And so it's comforting the promises that we have in here for sure. Don't get me wrong here. This is for sure the most comforting part, but it's not immediate, right? It's like off someday. It's not now, but later. And so as a very mature person who's able to be with the not now and not make it about something else, right? I mean, if you're told no now, some later, sometimes we get, well, I don't know, people don't like that answer. Yeah, there's people we need to be okay with no. Because no is sometimes the answer, right? We get that answer, no. And so we want to make sure that we're able to continue in the faith and be emblematic, or the examples of, yes, this is going to come eventually, but it's no right now. And Karl was okay with the no right now. You know, that's one part of the road that people don't want to talk about. That it's hard, it's difficult, you get no's. But it's kind of long and quiet sometimes on that road. I remember being on that road and not knowing which way this road's going. You know, what do you have for me, Lord? I don't see what's in front of me here. I don't know, but I trust. As Morris said, I put my little hand in his big hand and just trust the way. And Karl did that. He didn't know, but he showed up and he stayed. You know, he spoke up with his voice when the silence would have probably been a little easier for him. And some people are a part of this faith because he did. It's pretty cool. So we want to honor him this morning. We want to honor him honestly. And so Karl had already been doing the hardest part of this walk, this way of life. He heard the no from the doctors, and he didn't let it get him down. He still showed up. He still went to service projects for widows and orphans, fatherless, because it's just who he is. And honoring him doesn't necessarily bring him back, but you know, it's good for us to talk about these things. It's like, I'm bring him back? Sure, you're right, but you know, I'm not gonna argue. The Bible doesn't either. You know, the Bible does not hide something from us that is a very difficult question that I've had, which is why didn't Jesus heal everyone? The question was brought up to me, how many children do you think Jesus walked past to heal the one person at Bethsaida, right? The pool of Bethsaida, where there's all those people around it that are sick? We know, because he says it healed one man. And that pool was full of what? People that were sick. He walked right past, 3, 4, 5 children that looked up at him, really desiring, wishing, and hoping he would heal them. And I'm not saying he didn't care. I'm sure it hurt him. We know it hurt him on the inside with Jesus. To walk past those children, walk past those people. You read about it in John 11, where it talks about Lazarus, his friend, right? Right before he heals Lazarus, he cries, he weeps. It says he weeps. Jesus wept. You're about to raise him. Why are you crying? And you think about the scene there, the hysteria that was probably going on. You know, Martha and then Mary, sweet Mary, looking up at him. Where were you? He knew. We know the story. He tarried. He waited to make sure that was happening. And he weeps. And the only answer I can come up with is that he just bears our pain with us. Doesn't shy away from it. And pain is the point? I don't know. It's like not looking away from the pain. Although the pain, I'm here with you. It's like that. Because it's not now, right? The answer we get in the book here of why Jesus did not heal everyone is that it's not the place or the time. Comforting? Yeah, cold comforting, right? It's cold comfort. It's not an oversight. It's not, okay, just, sorry. No. It's that eventually he will wipe away every tear. That is the hope that we have. And it's not cold, it's just late. Think about it. When Isaiah says, comfort ye all my people, it's a beautiful line. It comes after what? Lots and lots of trials. And Paul says, if in this life alone we have hope in Jesus, then we are of all men most, what? Miserable. If in this life that's all there is, if this is all there is, then correct. It's unbearable. And there is no comfort. That isn't a lie, in a way. Although he didn't heal everyone, eventually he's going to heal us all. And please hear this for what it is. The people he did heal, they eventually died. Right? So, no one gets out of this place alive. We eventually die. We pass. The blind man that saw, eventually closed his eyes. And the lame man that walked again, he laid down. The healings were never the destination. There were signs that were pointing to the destination, weren't they? The healings were signs to point to what is to come. That's why. These healings seem to be, to me, a way for people to pay attention and notice Jesus is who he says he is and listen to what he has to say, because if you do, you'll have life everlasting. You'll have the kind of healing you're actually looking for. So the healing didn't come for Karl in this life. This was never where the real promise lived. I'm not going to insult Sharon. Hello, by the way, Sharon, and everyone else. The real kind of healing comes when the grain of wheat falls and it rises again. That's the healing. But it necessarily has to fall. Because Karl already knew this, and he was living that. And I think about some of our encounters, and he was just carrying it in stride, And that was, it's wonderful to see those kind of people. How do you handle this kind of no? And he was able to carry it on his shoulder, which is something we can get inspired by. At least I was. I don't like this idea that people tell you that this is all part of the plan, right? They told you this, it's part of the plan. Or this is the really bad one. God needed his angel back. Really? God's selfish? I think that it's just difficult sometimes. I want to be careful. I don't want to tell you that it's not a part of the plan. It is a part of the plan. But it's okay just to let things be painful and just to be there for people. See, God authored none of this, right? God did not author the sorrow, didn't author the pain, none of it. The one who walked the way ahead of us, who did not despise the grave, that wept right before healing his friend Lazarus. He stood and cried, and he loved. Even in the garden, we see him asking God if there's any other way. He gets it. He understands. Yet, I want you to turn, we'll go to a scripture, I promise. Go to Matthew 11. Give you a little bit of time to get there. I'm infatuated with Matthew 11. You know this. We've kind of unpacked some things that are here before. What we have here is Jesus and John's disciples. John's disciples have just come to him. You pick it up there in verse 2. And when John had heard in the prison the works the Christ had done, he sent two of his disciples. And he said unto him, Are you he that should come? Or do we look for another? Are you the coming one? Would be another way of saying that. Are you the coming one, or should we look for someone else? And you have to know, as we've talked about before, that the coming one was a specific messianic type. There's a couple of different messianic types, meaning, caricatures, outlines of what the Messiah would look like, so they would know who the Messiah is. And this is a specific one that you can tie back to, I think it's Hosea, that talks about Micah, anyways, 9:11, talks about the coming king, the one to come, right? That he'll come in. And Jesus answers, because they're wanting it to be that one, by the way. That messianic type was going to come in as a king, restore his kingdom at that time in that place, right? The conquering king. It's not the conquering king that he's come to for this earthly ministry, right? We know this. And he said unto them, and says, Go and show John the things that you hear and the things that you see. So the things are going on here. I want you to go back and give report to John. And he says, The blind receive the sight, and the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead rise up, and the poor have the gospel preached to them. Now, if you take a chance to go and look up back to what this is referring to, the description of the coming one, it'll give you a list of what that coming one is going to do when he comes. And there's one thing that Jesus left off this list. And it's the one thing that John's the most interested in, you would say. It's he's going to be a breaker of chains. He's going to liberate the imprisoned. John's asking, in a way, are you going to free me from prison? Are you going to get me out of this stinking dungeon at some point? And Jesus tells him back what? No. The one thing that's left off the list of this type that you're asking me of is the thing that you're interested in, and it's no dice, John, no dice. And then he says, and blessed is he whosoever shall not be offended in me. Other translations have it in other ways, but it doesn't, for me, matter very much. It says here, yes, they don't stumble upon account of me is a very interesting one, I think. Why? Why say that after this list of things that are going well? Right? These are all good things. And then he says that? It doesn't make sense. Why? What does that mean, Jesus? Why are you saying that here? Why are you saying... Well, because when Karl heard the no, did he go off and, get mad at God and shake his fist at the sky? No, he didn't. He kept it in stride, right? He was not going to stumble upon account of Jesus. What? No, stumble on account of what? The cold comfort that Jesus was offering. He said, okay, all right. And so he's telling John, his cousin, by the way, I'm not going to get you out of prison. And he goes on to say what? That John is, there's none greater than have been born of woman than John. Wait, the guy who just told that you're not going to get out of prison? Your cousin? Okay, I'll bite. What gives? Please, I'm not being flippant, but God knows my heart, you know. And so, what is going on here? You love John, okay, the greatest born of woman, but you're not going to get him out of prison. And not only are you not going to get him out of prison, but he goes on to die a pretty horrific death. Horrific in the fact that just very, it's not good. And so, I'll give you the point. It's about something bigger, right? It's about something bigger than your comfort. Sometimes the answer is no, because there's something bigger at play. And it's worth the things that you're laying down for. There's so many great verses between that one and the one I'm going to, but he goes through and talks about the unrepentant towns and cities here. Like, it says that the things that I did in, Bethsaida and Chorazin and all these miracles have been performed in Tyre and Sidon, right? They would have repented, you know. If these miracles that I've been doing, the healings and all the things I've been doing inside of you have been done in Sodom and Gomorrah and, you know, Tidon, they would have repented, you know. That's how bad you are. You see these miracles that I'm giving to you just to be a starter for the faith, to show you that I am who I say. And you didn't even see that as something, as a sign to repent. And then he goes on to say, this is a very interesting line. He says, I thank you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, that you have hidden these things from what? The wise and the prudent. And delivered them unto who? Babes. Sometimes we don't have to know, right? We can be babes, not have the answer, not get the thing we want, and act and have faith, right? It doesn't have to make sense to me to trust in him. Some people need for it to make sense to them, to believe. And those people have very, very brittle faith. It's a man who can say, I don't know, right? The man who can hear the no and continue to stay faithful to God. That person has faith. It's Thomas, right? It's the one that was there in front of him. He says, blessed are you. For you see and you believe, which is good, but blessed is he that believes without seeing. That says, okay, Lord, after hearing the no. He doesn't know and he still acts anyways. That's the kind of men who have wonderful faith, and that's the kind of man that Karl was. Because he's hidden these things from the wise and the prudent and the learned, but he's given them to people that will not fall apart when the healing doesn't come. That's the kind of man my friend was. He wasn't going to, I'm going to say this. Sharon, every tear you've cried, and other things you've done with Karl over the years, that's not all for naught. And it doesn't mean that God doesn't care. I know you know all this. But what Karl did will go on living through forwarding the mission of the kingdom. It'll continue to have benefit in the movement. And I don't know you don't hear anything about that right now, so we just hope and pray that you all and the family are okay. You won't have to walk this road alone, and you won't have to glean the field alone either. Every person here want to be a part of what's next. So this is where we land. I didn't really tell you very much as far as what you didn't know, but hopefully you know it's not no forever. To be on that road with someone where you have the ability to look to them and just, they know already, right? They know because they've been there. They've had to hear the no themselves and continue to go, okay, this too shall pass. Right now it's hard. It's invaluable, you know? The value of it can't be overstated, to have that kind of shared camaraderie of those kind of situations. And we just have that quiet knowing. Kind of men and women who say, I don't know, and not lose, you know, any kind of, not to feel strange about it. That's a strong answer. To know that because the seed has to go down to rise again, it doesn't mean He doesn't love and care for us. So although fire day lingers, right, Sabbath comes. Well done, Karl. Rest now. The morning